Hello, Fanfest. Welcome to the structures presentation. My name is CCB Fozzie, one of the game designers here on EVE. You guys all have a good time last night? You managed, yeah, Pub Crawl 8. You all managed to make it here, which is a good sign. You're not still like lost out at the horse farm. Hopefully we didn't leave too many people behind, but yeah, it was a really great time last night. I'm gonna do my best not to lose the rest of my voice halfway through this presentation. We'll see how it goes. Today we're gonna be talking about a couple of different things. We're going to look back on the last year in structure changes. I'm going to show you some graphs, just do some interesting stuff about how people are using structures, and some stats around the layout of structures in New Eden. We're going to talk about the Outpost replacement process, how all the Outposts and Conquerables in EVE are going to be turning into new faction Citadels on June 5th. Talk about the stats and the names of the actual faction Citadels. We're going to go into a bit of the next step for Starbases, the old structure system in EVE that is being phased out and replaced by new ones. We're going to talk a bit about some future Upwell structures, what's coming in both the near and farther future. And if we do have any time at the end, we'll have some Q&A, but otherwise there's going to be a round table right after this as well. But first, as has been one of the themes of this FanFest, 15th anniversary, a lot of us have been looking back at our early days in EVE and reminiscing a bit. When I started EVE, it was 2006. I started in the middle of 2006, so almost 12 years ago, back when I looked like this. And my first character looked like this. Not actually my first character, that's a different story, but the first one that I stuck with, the first character that I kept as a main for a long time. And yeah, that brings back a lot of memories. When I first started, this was my first corporation, corp called Northern Empire. I actually joined this corp right after I started playing EVE. I was just exploring the game, trying out the tutorial, and somebody said in local chat, hey, I've got a corp full of Canadians. Any Canadians here want to join? Thought that was a great idea. Hop into this corp, met some really nice people. They were a really good corp to start with. And they actually had a presence in Nullsec, so I ended up moving, getting involved with Nullsec pretty quickly. They were allied very closely with these guys right here. I can vouch for the accuracy of that animation. And that's those of you who have been around in EVE since 06 or before may remember the Killer 8's awesome animation. This is from his Red Moon Rising one. Yeah, he was also a part of the Big Blue and had the experience of this, this first early attempt at not red shoot it that had some weird side effects with the lockdowns. But yeah, this was what the soft map looked like back when I started playing EVE in the middle of 2006. A bit of a blast from the past. Some of you guys are going to recognize some of the names here on this screen. For instance, there's CVA down there in Providence. You'll also see a little upstart corporation that ended up becoming big later called Goonswarm. Up in the north, we've got Razor. As well as the southwest, mostly controlled by a band of brothers. At this point, when I started playing EVE, there was a really big war going down here in the southeast. And there was going to be a big war coming pretty soon down in the south. Those of you who have read the Empires of Eve history book will know the stories of some of these wars. But I got to see those take place right as I started Eve, watching the forums, watching this kind of epic space drama unfold around me. Myself, I was living in Geminate. This is the Big Blue's territory, little itty bitty space. We took the IPS, or had the IPS constellation in Geminate, with the crown jewel being the blue pill. So this is one of the first Galente outposts ever in the game in BWF. It's actually the 14th outpost to ever be anchored in New Eden. It had a Minmatar outpost right next door in 8MG, and it was a neutral NRDS free port. It was the first outpost that I ever witnessed. I have really great memories of escorting people with the haulers out to the blue pill with my Merlin that had a couple of blasters, a couple of rocket launchers, as if I was going to be really helping against the people that would be shooting them. But I was doing my best. Because BWF was right beside HiSec and had an outpost, it was a really amazing place for capital construction, which of course went really well, and nobody had any reason to disrupt that whatsoever. No, actually, what ended up happening was this alliance, Big Blue, had some industrial wings from NAGA. It had the Eve University as part of it, and it had some PvP groups of the Four Horsemen, but ended up drawing the attention of some bigger powers. So we got attacked by Mercenary Coalition. Yeah. I ended up working with some of the people that had shot at me later on when I eventually joined CCP. And then after the MC left, the Constellation got attacked heavily by SAS and Euphoria released. And so I actually joined Eve partway through the war with the MC, hopped up there. Mostly I was in that space while the follow-up attacks were happening. We ended up losing the Constellation, but I stuck with the Big Blue for a while longer. I actually moved over from Northern Empire to Eve University. How many of you guys are Eve Uni alums? Eve University was a really great organization for me to spend my early years in, or early months in. I ended up leaving them mostly because I wanted to try out piracy. Went from there to the original Red versus Blue. How many of you guys have been in Red versus Blue? And my Eve career kind of progressed from there. But yeah, this is the early days of my Eve life were revolved heavily around Outposts, which is something that I've been thinking a lot about as we've been focusing a lot on Outposts in our work recently. So let's quickly go back to some of the stuff that we've worked on over the last year. This has been a really eventful year, just like the last one before that for Structures in New Eden. We put Alliance logos onto Structures. We made a big set of structure balance changes in August, which include weapon balance, deployment UI updates, being able to see which direction the undock's going to be and stuff like that. Easier fueling, corp insurance. We also had the refineries and moon mining and Lifeblood. How many of you guys have tried out moon mining since Lifeblood? And Upwell 2.0 this February with big changes to full power and low power mode. We added vulnerability permanently all the time with a new reinforcement system, structure combat overhaul, and moon mining in W space and HiSec. So we've been really happy with the amount of feedback we were able to get from you guys. Your feedback really fed into Upwell 2.0, and thank you all very much for that. Yeah. We also made big changes to jump and tether on structures and to the solve system in March, and we've been making bug fixes and performance improvements all on the way. This has been an ongoing process. Team 5.0 is very focused on structures in the past, and we will continue to be in the future, making sure that they are really strong, well-rounded options for players going forward. Now I've got some graphs actually to show you guys, a little bit of an insight of how structures are being used around New Eden, what kind of structures exist out there. The first one is actually a graph of how many structures there are in New Eden. So we've got the stacked graph here is all the Upwell structures. The line is how many starbases are in space. And you can see the very large drop in starbases when we introduced Lifeblood as people took down their moon mining starbases. And we have actually now reached the point where there are more Upwell structures than there are starbases. We're still nowhere near as many Upwell structures as there have been starbases in the past, but they've actually now surpassed starbases in the total number in space. This is an updated version of a graph that we showed you last year with the amount of industry being done in different structures. This is measured by the total value of the outputs of the industry, and for all forms, manufacturing, research, everything. As you can see, over time, people have been moving heavily over to the Upwell structures from the point we introduced engineering complexes, when they shoot right up there. And we've actually now reached the point where Starbases represent less than 0.5% of all the industry in New Eden. People have really taken advantage of shifting over to the new Upwell structures. We introduced the moon mining feature in Lifeblood and then expanded it to high-sec and wormholes in the Upwell 2.0 release. And this is the total number of actual moon extractions going on over time in all the different areas of space. You can see null-sec at the bottom there as the most popular. It's also the largest area of space. Low-sec, and then really great uptake of high-sec and wormholes when we introduced that in February. We've also been really fascinated watching how players have chosen to set up their extractions. So what length you choose for your extractions. This is a graph we made of the total, like basically the average length of extractions by the extraction hours. And you see there's like spikes on the weeks as people try to set them up so that they come out repeatedly on weekends. But then there's actually a pretty decent distribution. A lot of them in the shorter half, and then a cluster towards the long end. We were really actually concerned when we were setting up the system that it was going to be really skewed to one end or really skewed to the other, and that we'd have to provide some kind of incentive like diminishing returns for length or bonuses for length. But I think we're really happy with this distribution, the fact that we're seeing people choosing a variety of levels, that they can basically choose a extraction length that fits their schedule of when they're going to be able to get their friends together to mine, rather than having to be forced by game mechanics to choose a certain length. We've also, one of the other major goals we had for the introduction of moon mining and Lifeblood was we wanted to increase the amount of PvP combat that would be around the whole moon mining system. Both fighting over the structures, but also now the ability to fight over the actual moon mining itself, because it'll be out in space with ships. So we made this graph. This is the total amount of PvP destruction within 1,000 kilometers of any moon mining structure. So that's the old moon miners on POSs before the patch, and it's refineries with the moon drill after the patch. So you can see a pretty significant uptake. It's really great to see. That last spike at the end there is almost entirely caused by one fight in DTAC-G. So good job, guys. There was a lot of dredge that blew up there, and that's what caused that most recent spike there at the end of March. So now let's go in and talk a little bit about the Outpost replacement process. So this is something we talked about at the keynote. As we mentioned there, this is coming on June 5th, so we're really excited to actually have a date for you now. In June, originally we'd been planning on doing this switch over in the winter of this year, a little bit earlier, but we ended up deciding to push it forward to June to make room for Upwell 2.0 and to the solve and jump changes that we released in March. We think that was the right choice. We were hearing feedback from you guys that you wanted more updates to the existing structures, and we went ahead and went forward with that. On June 5th, every single Outpost and Conquerable station will be converted into an upgraded faction Fortizar during the downtime. They're powerful, they're limited edition. No more will be added after this initial batch of these types of structures. There will be other, of course, Upwell structures introduced in the future, but these structure types with these bonuses will never come into the game again, which means that they will eventually slowly decrease in number as time goes on and become a valuable collector's item. So these structures can be unanchored and redeployed just like any other Upwell structure with the same mechanics. They can be placed in high-sec, low-sec, null-sec, and wormholes. So we do expect to see a whole bunch of these get put in Rage, for instance. There's going to be them moving all over the galaxy as suddenly these models that used to you'd only see in null-sec, you're going to start to see them all over space. They're also going to come with special edition rigs. And we're going to have more details about the structures themselves and the rigs a little bit later in the presentation. First, I want to talk about the process itself of the conversion. The new faction Citadels will belong to the last owner of the Outpost or Conquerable, and there will be an automatic migration of just about everything: characters, assets, clones, offices, industry jobs, market orders, contracts, and bookmarks that point to the station itself will then point to the new structure. So we want to make this as transparent as possible. If you log off the day before the patch in a Outpost or a Conquerable station, when you log back in, you're going to be in a new Upwell structure with all of your stuff moved over, with all your market orders moved over, with all your clones moved over, ready to go right away. These new Citadels will also be preloaded with service modules, so they'll be able to do all the things that the old Outpost could do day one, and they'll have some fuel to get you started, so that you don't need to panic log in right after the downtime to get them into high power mode. We're also giving them 2 days of invulnerability to make sure that the transition process works smoothly. So once Outposts and Conquerables are converted, they're going to enter a temporary invulnerability mode. During this time, the structure can be fitted, so it's going to start with service modules, but you can feel free to take them off and switch them for other ones if you want, and you can fit it with the weapons and everything else. But it cannot activate modules, it can't launch fighters, and it can't begin the unanchoring process until the 2 days are up. Reinforcement time changes can be made during this time, but they work with the normal process where they get queued and they have the 7 days take effect. But you can preset your reinforcement time ahead of time so that you don't even need to do that. And this mode is going to last until Thursday, June 7th, to make sure that nobody has to rush right after the patch. They have some time to collect themselves, take a look at all their structures, and get everything ready to go. On June 7th, the structures are going to enter the standard shield vulnerable state of all other Upwell structures. So they'll be shootable on June 7th, and you'll be able to start turning these into these for the first time ever. This big event, this transition event Outpost Day, is something that we really want people to make sure they're prepared for. That's why we've been talking about it for so long. The way you can prepare, take and hold Outposts and Conquerables before June 5th. Protect your holdings from your neighbors as best you can. Make sure you double check what corporations have control of your outposts so that you know what corporations are going to be in charge of them when they turn into faction citadels. And set default ACL profiles and default reinforcement times for your corporation, because all of these structures are going to start out with the default corporation ACL profile and reinforcement times. So that will make it a lot smoother for the transition if you have those set to something that you like. I was going to show you actually how that UI works so you get a good idea of what you need to do. Also be prepared for a longer than usual downtime. This is going to be by far the largest item migration we've ever done in EVE. It's kind of like that trick where you pull out the tablecloth and keep all the glasses in place, except with like 10 million glasses. So it is going to be a bit of a longer downtime. I just want to let everyone know that ahead of time. Be prepped for that. This is where you set the default profile on your structure if you want. So in the structure browser, you can select one of the profiles for your corporation and set it as your default profile. That would then be the default for the whole corporation. That's the one that gets automatically used when you place a new structure, as well as being the one that you automatically get when you get these converted outposts on Outpost Day. And yes, you guys can see that on this test server, I happen to have a Palatine Citadel under my control. But that's something a little bit special just for the test server. This is also where you can change the default reinforcement, so it's in the My Structures Corporation settings. This reinforcement hour and day is, again, what is used by default when you place a new structure, but of course you can customize them from there when you place them. But it's also going to be the default starting reinforcement time for all of the new faction citadels. So make sure that the corporations in your alliances that have control of the outposts have good values set for these before June 5th, and everything will go really smoothly. We're going to have more information about this and more reminders as we get a bit closer to the day, and dev blogs and news reports and all that kind of fun stuff. We're also adding historic permanent monuments to a lot of these systems that are really exciting to see. Conquerable stations, and I'm proud to say a very small number of especially storied outposts are going to be getting these monuments. These stations have been key locations in EVE history. The Conquerables especially, because they existed before the Outpost and have been great staging systems and capital systems for much of EVE's early history. Systems like Knoll and HTAC-W, CTAC-J, VFK, these are really, really huge systems in EVE's history, and so we're going to have monuments for them, as well as for some key historic outposts like 5P, the first outpost, KDF, ECTAC, 9UI, and a few others. We're also considering having some monuments for specific multi-system locations that matter a lot for these structures, like J8, which is the first constellation that had one of each outpost in it. And so these are going to be landmark sites that'll be near the location of the old stations. They're going to have some simplified history of the station and the system. We've got ISD helping us out writing these. And they're going to be updated after the initial release to include the information of the last alliance to control the outpost or a conquerable before it flipped over. I had originally talked about having to show the alliance on day one, but then we realized that you guys could swap control or take control after we've written the text, like on the last couple of days, and it would be really embarrassing to have the wrong information. So instead, we'll be starting them out with the basic information and then filling in the alliance that owned it once we actually know what alliance owned it at the end. And I can talk a little bit about the faction Fortizars themselves. So these are the structures that you guys are going to be getting on this day. They're upgraded versions of all the standard Fortizars. They will not have any blueprints. They can't be built. They're limited edition. No more will get added after this initial batch. There's 5 new types of them, 1 to replace each of the outposts, and 1 to replace the set of conquerable stations. All the conquerables turn into the same type of Fortizar. And the outpost replacement ones are going to get bonuses that are connected to the outposts themselves, the outpost bonuses, and they're going to use enlarged and improved versions of the outpost models, which I'm really happy about because the outpost models are really, really powerful for me. Thinking back to my time in EVE all the way back to 2006, it would be a real shame if we had lost those models and those visuals, but we are keeping them in the form of Fortizars. So they're going to get bigger because Fortizars are bigger. They're going to be able to fit the launchers on them. They're going to be able to use point defense. They're going to be able to use tethering, all of that stuff. The models have been upgraded to be able to do everything that a Citadel can do. The bonuses, like I said, are connected to the outposts, and I'm really happy to say the names of these structure types are connected to the player history of the first players to deploy the outposts. So first of all of them, and the most common, is the Prometheus Service Fortizar. So this is the structure that replaces the Minmatar Service outpost. Only 441 will ever exist in New Eden. It's named for Prometheus Station, which was the first outpost ever deployed in New Eden in 5-TAC-P. It was deployed by Celestial Horizon Corp in the Ascended Frontier Alliance back in 2005. And the Prometheus Station, the original one, was named after a character actually named Prometheus Wrong. So really this structure is inheriting the name from this player. That's him there. And he's going to have his name immortalized in EVE forever with this structure. I'm going to just go through the bonuses and stats really quickly. We're going to have more dev blogs on those later, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time focusing on them because we're not going to have enough time for that for this presentation. But the bonuses for the Prometheus one are the standard Fortizar bonuses plus reprocessing bonuses. That's them there. Again, you can pause the video. We'll have the dev blog soon. Slot layouts, they got extra slots, they've got extra fitting, extra cap, better fighters, really strong. This is the Margenis Administrative Fortizar, replaces the Galente Outpost. Only 188 of these will ever exist. It's named after ISS Margenis, which was the first Galente outpost ever launched in New Eden. ISS Margenis was built by the Interstellar Starbase Syndicate in KDF. It was the first of these outposts built from an IPO. So they actually collected money from players. They ran it as a corporation. They then gave profits back to their shareholders. And it was the first public Freeport outpost in New Eden, which is a really major milestone. Quickly, the bonuses here. So this one has a much stronger bonus to service module fuel consumption to go with it being a service outpost to kind of replace the old bonuses to offices. And there's the stats. Again, more slots, more HP. In great Galente style, it's a hull-tanked Citadel. This is the Dracus manufacturing Fortizar. So it's going to replace the Amar outpost. Only 398 of them will ever exist. It's named for Dracus Station, which is the first Amar outpost ever be deployed in New Eden. It was deployed by the EVE Defense Corp, another corp in Ascendant Frontier, back in OOYZ. Its bonuses are manufacturing, to go along with the standard Fortizar ones. And there's the slots, there's the stats. Again, bonuses pretty much across the board. And this is the Horizon Research Fortizar. So this replaces the Caldari outpost. Only 114 will ever exist. This is the rarest of the outpost types. It's named for the Celestial Horizon Corporation, the corp that built many of the original outposts in New Eden, including the first Minmatar and Caldari ones, one of the founding members of the Ascendant Frontier Alliance. The first Caldari outpost in the game was actually called Prometheus Research Station. We didn't want to name 2 Fortizars the same name, so we had to give this one a different one. It was also sponsored by Prometheus Wrong, that guy again. And he was obviously a really impactful member of these initial outpost deployment processes. Big thanks to all the players that helped me actually track down what the name of these outposts were, especially this one. I put out a call for help on Twitter, and you guys were able to help me track it down. Thanks to all of you that helped out with that. The bonuses on this one, it's the standard Fortizar ones plus science bonuses. And there's a slot layout. It's got the best shield hit points of all of them to go with B and Caldari. And then finally, this is the really rare one. This is the Moreau Fortizar. It's going to replace all the conquerable stations in New Eden. Only 68 of these will ever exist because these are the rarest of the types of stations out there. It's named for Sebastian Moreau, which is the in-universe character that founded the Immensio organization that then built these conquerables. There's a chronicle called Forsaken Ruins that I really encourage you guys all to check out. If you take a look in the fiction portal, you'll be able to find it. And it tells the story of more recent pilots discovering some history connected to these structures and how the Jove helped open them up to Capsuleers. So this is really a jack of all trades. It's getting weaker versions of all the other bonuses, so it's a really strong set of general all-around bonuses. And its pure stats are the best of all of them. So it's got lots more slots, including an extra launcher, more hit points across the board. This is going to be a really powerful upgraded Fortizar, and I'm really excited to see what people do with it. All of these new Fortizars are also going to come with special edition rigs. So each faction Fortizar is going to come with one powerful special edition rig. Even the ones that are replacing the Conquerables and the unupgraded Outposts will get a rig. It'll just be a weaker rig in that case. Special edition rigs will combine multiple bonuses. They will get upgraded versions if the Outpost was upgraded, connected to the upgrades that were there. So the higher level the upgrade, the more powerful the rig, and the rig bonuses will be connected to the bonuses of the upgrades. But all of them will include bonuses to hit points, capacitor, sensor, and point defense. So they're all going to actually be really useful across the board. These rigs are only ever available through this event, so you won't be able to build more of them, you won't be able to attach them to other structures. And they get lost when the Citadel is either unanchored or destroyed. So everyone who gets these Citadels on day one will have a choice. You can choose to take it down and move it somewhere else or sell it, potentially take advantage of the fact that you can move it and sell it, but then you lose the rig. Or you can try to keep it and defend it in that spot and get to keep the rig. The idea is that there's a good trade-off there that should be an interesting choice for people, and we're hoping that there will be a wide variety of options people will take. Some people will keep them up, some people will take them down. We're also adding something that some of you may have saw in our data files and asked questions about earlier called industrial support facilities. These are because the current Outposts and Conquerables provide reductions to the industry ISK costs, to the cost scaling in their systems. The new industrial support facilities are going to appear in all the systems that had an Outpost or a Conquerable in them on patch day. They're NPC landmarks that, at least at this time, will not be destructible. And the Amar one is going to get an advanced manufacturing one, the Caldari one is getting advanced research, and the Glantian Mimitar and the Conquerables get a general purpose one. And the idea is that these provide very similar bonuses to what you had before in the system, so that if you set up your infrastructure in a system that has, say, an Amar outpost to take advantage of the cost scaling bonuses, you'll be able to keep doing that with this new system. We eventually would like to move these over to something else, potentially move them into a iHub or administrative hub style upgrade connected to SOV, but in the meantime, this allows us to make sure that industrialists can keep taking advantage of these bonuses in the future. For all of this stuff, we've got dev blogs coming soon with all those numbers in case you didn't get a chance to take a look at them while I flash them on the screen, as well as details about public testing. So right now we're doing internal testing of the Outpost migration, but we're going to be doing public testing very soon. We're really interested in getting your help public testing. We want to see whether when we convert all the Outposts on a test server, whether everything looks good for you, whether all your stuff is still in place, whether you're happy with the results. So we'll be giving you more information on the forums about that soon. Keep an eye out for that. So now let's talk a little bit about the next steps for Starbase phase out. So Starbases are the old, much harder to use structure system in New Eden. We're replacing their functionality with new Upwell structures that are a lot easier to use, a lot more powerful. And we're slowly phasing out the old system as we go. And so I'm happy to say the next step in that is going to take place in July. So in July, we're doing the reimbursement of all the Starbase industry and moon mining structures. So these are the actual Starbase modules that are connected to those areas. We're going to increase the reprocessing yield of the modules themselves so that you can get the full materials back by reprocessing them, or pretty close to the full. And the blueprints themselves will be converted into stand-up module blueprints of similar value. So everyone will get all of their old value back. And then after that, the next step is going to be this winter, when we're going to disable manufacturing, research, reprocessing, and compression functions in Starbase structures. As I showed you on that graph earlier, less than 0.5% of all the industry in New Eden is currently being done in Starbases, but we want to make sure we still give you enough time to spin down those last remaining 0.5% and shift over to the new structures. So that's going to take place later this winter, towards the end of the year. And I'm also happy to be able to talk about the next Upwell structures that are coming after the Outpost conversion. So we talked a little bit about this. CCP Seagull talked about this in the keynote. The next step for Upwell is navigation structures. And we think there's some really cool stuff that Upwell is going to be able to do with those. So these are going to be replacements for jump bridges, Sino beacons, and Sino jammers, at least to start. They're going to be the first small-sized Upwell structures. That's not to say they're actually small, but they're smaller than the medium structures. They're still pretty big. They're going to be, some of them will be, I think, in a similar scale to like a Stargate. And these will be, because they're small structures, will have a different set of rules compared to some of the larger ones. They're not going to have tethering or docking. And we think the addition of small structures is actually going to open up a lot of other cool possibilities, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, too. These are going to require iHub upgrades, at least at the beginning. And we're currently investigating how we can integrate Upwell features into these, like having ACL-controlled jump bridges, changing how jump fatigue interacts with bridges. We're hoping that we can significantly reduce the impact of jump fatigue on these, potentially pull it out entirely. We'll have to see how the whole balance of them goes. But we want to approach these with a fresh design slate, and I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities there. We also have another set of Upwell structures that are in the works a little bit after that. For propaganda and advertisement, being able to really show off. These are some of the concept art. So the idea is you have some new ways to show off, visual customization, things like putting up banners, putting up notices when you're entering your own territory in factional warfare or in SOV, representing your corp and alliance, flying your flags all over your space. We're looking potentially at unique universe-exclusive monuments. Think a larger variety of monuments that use the Palatine mechanic, where they're not as expensive, but only one can exist. So if you want to build your own, you have to destroy the other one. So if you want to have like a giant statue to whatever, to Villa, you have to knock down the statue to Asher somewhere else. And we were also really interested in doing corp recruitment advertisements through these structures. And just potentially allowing you to go up to other people's structures, other people's space, their asteroids, and tag your logo on them, show them that you've been there. This particular idea is 100% inspired by you. You guys have covered me with so many stickers this weekend so far, with all of your Alliance and Corp logos. And we actually see that as well whenever you guys come to visit our office. There's Eve Corp and Alliance logos all over the place, and I think it would be great to be able to see that kind of stuff happen in game as well. And this is some of the concepts that are being worked on for Stargate customization. This is a potential future option to be able to set up your Stargates in your space with your logos, with banners, with visual customization. We'd love to see this kind of thing tied as well to the borders between the empires and HiSec and control of FW. Be able to see which factions control different space in FW through these Stargates would be amazing. So yeah, this is just some of what our artists are experimenting with and thinking about, but I'm really excited. This is, you don't notice, this is a internal artist testing alliance called Pancakes. No relation to any other similar alliances. We're also interested in exploring player-forward operating bases. This is actually another idea that has come very much out of suggestions from you guys here at Fanfest in previous years. The idea would be to get Capsuleers a hold of pirate-modified Upwell tech, faster deploying and cheaper small structures that are used for temporary short-term deployments. This is something we've had a lot of requests for things like wormhole day tripping and invasion beachheads. a lot of the kind of stuff that people currently use small posses for. There's a lot of power in an Upwell structure, which means that we need to put a lot of restrictions on how long you have to spend anchoring it. But if we create a version of a structure that is a lot less powerful, that, for instance, doesn't have docking, that maybe has a shared ACL or corporate controlled space that can be accessed from outside the structure and some limited tethering, maybe no weapons, maybe has a limited lifespan, these kind of structures would be the sort of thing that we can allow you to deploy more quickly, which we think would add a lot of flexibility. I think it would be great for expeditions, for starter structures for small corporations. And yeah, like I said, they wouldn't have all of the actual features of a medium Upwell structure because obviously they need to be toned down for this. But we think there's a lot of really cool options here. This really did come out of suggestions from you guys in previous years. And we would love to hear more about what you would like to see in a structure like this. The idea is to build something that follows the role in the currently giant chasm between mobile depots on the small side and the medium Upwell structures on the other side. So I want to quickly go back even further into the past, talk a bit about the overall structure plan as we set it up when we first started and the goals that we had for it. So the idea was we wanted to make sure that these things support and enhance existing gameplay, that everyone who wanted to use a structure could use it, and that could mean owning one, but it could also mean using someone else's, using services for a fee from other people. Strong connections with the player should feel like home. Structure combat should be more exciting than it was under the old POS system. Wanted them to be visually aspirational, and I can tell you the art guys hit it out of the park for that. The visuals for the moon mining are some of my favorite things that we've ever done in EVE. They just absolutely blew me away when we released Lifeblood. The system should be extendable and future-proof. Should create more interesting locations to visit in a solar system. In some cases, we may have created too many interesting locations in Perimeter, but there's definitely a lot more than the interesting locations there used to be, so in some ways, off success. They should be simple and intuitive to deploy, manage, and use. Have coherent progression between them, and encourage interaction between groups of players, which was an especially big focus for the moon mining structures. This was the original lineup of structure concepts that we showed you many years ago. CCP Ytterbium stood up on this stage. Over time, we've introduced Citadels in the Citadel expansion that replaced the office and market hub concept. We combined the assembly arrays and the research labs into engineering complexes. The drilling platforms became refineries. Now we've got the faction Citadels coming out on June 5th. And then, like I just mentioned, up on deck after these are the Stargates, which are the navigation structures, at least in their first form, and then we can have more Stargates after that, potentially, as well as advertisement centers, propaganda structures, and gate customization. We also still believe that there's some really amazing options for concepts around observatories and admin hubs, too. As a lot of you guys may have discovered just recently, local is a pretty big deal. And being able to build a structure that interacts with the local chat, maybe that has some control over local chat, that maybe gives local chat to a system, and maybe you have to have that structure to have local chat. Having something that is used for pinpointing players, replacing locator agents, replacing all of these intelligence tools with infrastructure, we think has a huge amount of possibilities. This is something that comes up at Fanfest every year. In the 6 Fanfests I've been here, we've always had questions about lots and lots of mechanics related to intelligence, and I think observatories are an amazing opportunity to do really cool stuff there. Admin hubs, I think, are a great option as well to work on in the future. We really want to take the existing solve system, take the best parts of the Upwell structure system, combine them, take the best parts, get rid of the parts that aren't working as well. And admin hubs, I think, are a great option for that. We also think there's even more great opportunities to do cool things with structures, a lot of stuff that you guys have suggested over the years. I would really love to take structures and build them into war decks in a way that makes sure that both sides of a war deck have to have some skin in the game, and you've got some real combat. But there's a lot of really cool options there, and we'd love to keep talking to you guys about it as we go forward. Now, before I'm done, that's all the stuff about the future beyond this expansion that I have to talk about today. But there is one more thing that I want to show you. I could tell you about it, but I think it's a little bit cooler if I show it to you instead. Yeah, these are the first ever structure fireworks. A structure firework launcher and large fireworks that go with them are going to be coming with the Capsuleer Day event for the Eve's 15th birthday. You can see they look like a pod, which is perfect for Eve's 15th birthday. The art team designed them to be reminiscent of the shape of a pod for Capsuleer Day. I'm really, really happy about these. I also really love, personally, the fact that they kind of wrap around the ship so it looks like it's giving them a hug. So they're the largest ever hugs in EVE Online. These things are really cool, and they're going to be dropping from the sites in the Capsuleer Day event. So the live event that's going to start on Eve's birthday or right afterwards, the sites will drop both the modules and the fireworks for these, and you guys will be able to stick them onto your structures and have some fun with them. So we're really looking forward to that. They will take a high slot, but they will not take a launcher slot, was the question. So thanks for coming, everyone. We maybe have a little bit of time for questions. We've got some microphones lined up at the side. If you don't, we're not going to have very much time for questions, though, so maybe 5 minutes. So if you don't have time to get your question answered, don't worry. We've got the round table right after this. So it's at 1400 immediately after this presentation in the Amara roundtable room. And like I said before, keep an eye out for public testing notices and dev blogs coming for all this Outpost conversion stuff very soon. Thanks, everybody. So yeah, we've got mics on either side. People can line up and we'll start. I can't really see it. Are people there? All right, yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, Decanios, Castabouts. I was wondering, with the triggly-boggly things, where do they live, and will we have potential for future structures coming from them?
So the question, yeah, so whether we'll have future Triglavian structures. As for where they live, they do have structures in their space, so you'll see some structures in Abyssal Dead Space, and they live in those and in their spaceships. And I think it would be really cool in the future to have some Triglavian inspired. Maybe Upwell can steal some of the tech and incorporate it in, but nothing we can announce right now, but I do think that would be really cool, yes. Oh, and yes.
Hi, yeah, Piotr Engels, Manifesto. Now, before with the monument things, they were it was just going to be for seated stations, but of course now we're talking about some outposts. Is there a place where we're going to be able to see a list of all of the systems that are going to have
yes.
the monuments?
Yep, so we're going to, in the dev blog that'll be coming out soon, we'll have the list of all the places we're currently planning on adding monuments. That list may change, especially if we get really good player suggestions, but we're going to have an initial list that'll come out with that first dev blog, which should be coming pretty soon.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, so that'll be well before the release. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, one of the RVB pilots. How about arena structures? So we have like a marker in space with some flashy lights for the arena, so making also the streams and stuff like that a bit more exciting.
I think that would be really cool. It's not something we currently have on our roadmap. We've actually prototyped a kind of arena structure on Duality, one of our test servers, a couple of years back, and just wanted to see what players would think about it. The feedback we got from it was kind of, some people enjoyed it, but not a ton of people were testing it. So we may definitely expand in that direction at some point, but it's not currently a high priority for us. Yes.
Hi. About the player forward operating base, have you think about a system, for example, to lock a ship in place in tethering because I want to leave my supers for like 10 minutes and I can do something else in the meantime,
yep.
And nothing can take it?
So we definitely have thought about that. That was actually the original plan. Way back in the day, we weren't planning on having supercap docking for Citadels. Instead, there were going to be a tethering system that locked them in place. There's some definite issues with the physics system for that, though. So we've always backed off that in the past. I think it's possible we might introduce something like that in the future, but it's not trivial. It's definitely pretty complicated, so I can't make any promises.
Okay, thanks.
Lenai Kilian from Wingspan Delivery Services. Just wanted to say thank you for low-powered Citadels. That's all.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks to the people that gave us the idea.
Hello. One question. Those advertisements, can they be placed in all space, or are they limited to K-space?
I would expect there would be some that might be limited to certain areas, but that at the very least there will be options for all areas of space. Yeah, you'll definitely be able to place them in wormholes. If you want to let people know this is your wormhole, then that can be available for sure. Yes.
With the historical information being added to stations, are you going to include who built the original outpost?
For the Outpost ones, yes. For the Conquerables, those weren't built by players. But yeah, for the small set of Outposts, we'll be listing who built them. Yep.
I just wanted to know, I think the answer will be no, but I wanted to know if there is any plans to get more in the direction of like modular citadels, so player can build their own.
Yep, so very good question. We don't have any plans to do like big physical, like Lego citadels. We'd actually made some concepts about that in the past, ended up going with something that's more like a ship instead. However, what we definitely want to do more of is visual customization of them. So for instance, getting skins on citadels, getting the ability to put more banners and control, for instance, what videos get put up on the billboards. That's the kind of stuff that we would really like to do in the future, and that could allow some of that same visual customization. Yes?
With the addition of the monuments, will there ever be a time that we would see the monuments and the structures being on the map as a filter? To be able to see what ones are in the universe?
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. I would love to do that. And I think that's probably doable, yeah. There'll be landmarks, and we can actually do with putting more of the landmarks as an option on the map. I think that would be really good in general, yeah.
What are you looking at for the time for anchoring for the player deployable fobs?
It's still really early for that. Probably in the like a scale of like a small number of hours rather than days. Potentially even shorter than that. There's a lot that would need to be figured out with that still. It's still at an early concept stage. But yeah, we want them to be something that you can put up in a play session.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we just have time for one more question if anyone has it. And if not, then, okay, yep, one more. Yeah.
Hi. So with these new monuments that you mentioned going up earlier, are we going to be seeing any in J-Space as well for some of the larger battles there, or is it just going to be limited to?
So these are going to be connected just to Outposts rather than to battles.
Right.
If we did them for battles, then I think it would be really cool in the future, and I think we definitely have the option of pulling more types of monuments into the game. So far, it's been pretty limited, the number that we have. But in this case, these are tied right to these Outposts because of this big conversion. So these ones will just be in K-Space. Yeah.
Right.
All right, I think that is actually all the time we have for this presentation. But if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, definitely come to the round table right after this, and I'd love to talk to you all there. Thanks, everyone.